here is part 4 of my 2017 PFA season recap. Last time I talked about the National South, which of course consisted of Birmingham, Jacksonville, San Antonio, Atlanta, and Tampa. This time I'm going to talk about the last division in the National Conference, which is the National West, which has the Oakland Raiders, Phoenix Storm, Los Angeles Angels, Hawaii Phantoms, and Portland Dragons. So, here we go. So, we start off with the Portland Dragons. Last year, this team started off 7-0, remember, but they went 3-8 the rest of their way to finish 10-8. They had an elite offense, but a terrible defense. And I wasn't so sure exactly what was going to happen to them this year. What, were they going to make noise or not? And at first, they laid a gigantic, and I mean a gigantic egg. They were 1-8 to start off. 1-8, and they looked like one of the worst teams in a very weak division that they're just blowing this big opportunity. But then, after the halfway mark, they surged. They then won 4 games in a row in dominant fashion, including beating Hawaii 54-10 when they hosted, which is one of the most lopsided games in PFA history. So here they were, 5-8, second in the division, and not that far off from Oakland. And Oakland was not, and their lead was not really solid or stable. So there's a good possibility that everyone thought that maybe Portland could run away with it and maybe make a sudden rival and win the division possibly. But nope, that immediately went away as this team would go on to lose all but one of their games, which was their final game of the season, to finish a very disappointing 6-12. Now, of course, it doesn't take too much to see one obvious reason why they struggled this year. They are very lopsided. Look at this. Offensively, they still were very strong. They had the 7th best score in defense. They had the 2nd most offense in terms of yards. They had the number 1 pass offense in the league, and they were 17th in rushing, so they were really good. And they, honestly, so far, I think, were probably one of the more balanced offenses outside of maybe San Antonio that I've covered so far in my recaps. But look at that defense. As bad as I said yesterday about Atlanta and Jacksonville's defense, Portland was even worse. They are dead last in points, yards, and passing yards. They are worse than all the categories except for one, which is the run defense, which is actually pretty solid within the top middle of the pack in terms of the league. But that defense was so terrible. This team allowed almost 28 points a game, and they had 6 games where they allowed 30 or more points. That is terrible, including one game where they allowed 40 points. There is one thing you're not going to be doing when you're allowing that many points, and that's winning a whole bunch of games, even with an elite offense. And of course, their quarterback, Frederick Van Dyke, who had another awesome season, had injuries and missed 3 games, which doesn't help much either, but this offense is still really good. And they have their 2 stud wide receivers, Elmer Vance and Ira Spencer, but they don't have a really main running back, so they probably should go for that in the draft with that very high pick because, and they got to fix that defense too because they're not really going anywhere in this division. And of course, the division's so weak, so if they can manage to fix that defense somewhat, because we saw this year where everyone struggled by and large the entire year, if they can fix their defense, they could maybe challenge Oakland for division title supremacy for the next bunch of years possibly. But of course, that's a lot to ask for too. And of course, the whole rest of the division is probably going to make some major leaps from this year too. So a very disappointing season for Portland, and there are many, many, many reasons why they had such a terrible season this year. Then after that, it's the Hawaii Phantoms. Of course, last year they were called the Honolulu Phantoms. Remember, the only team to have their name changed. And of course, last year they were 9-9, and they looked like solid, so maybe they could possibly still be in a playoff contender, possibly. And remember, I actually picked them to win the division this year, but I didn't think they were going to be like good. I just thought they were going to win the division because the rest of the division was going to struggle due to a very strong schedule or being bad. And the almost first half of the season, they were up and down. They would like win a game and then lose a game. But after almost halfway through the season, they were 4-4 and still right there in the division. But no. No. They crapped, and I mean crapped, the bed the rest of the way. This team went on to lose 8 straight games to fall all the way down to 4-12, winning 2 meaningless games to finish 6-12, and possibly blowing a chance for them to get a really high pick in the draft, which they really could have used. This was a pretty bad season. As you can see, offensively, they still were pretty damn good, except for their running game, which was really bad. But offensively, they were all over the place. They really couldn't do anything by and large. And of course, their defense was still not really that good whatsoever. Although they still had their home field advantage of being all the way out in Honolulu, which really helped. This team was really all over the place. Richard Clough, their quarterback, was inconsistent, even though he had a solid season, but he was nowhere near as good as he was the previous year. And he's going to have major competition because his backup, Peter Smith, who played the final game of the season, he put up a 6-touchdown performance and no picks against the Cleveland on the road. So he did a really good performance, and he actually could be a major threat to possibly take the starting job away from Richard Clough if he doesn't have a major turnaround, because that was just an incredible performance he put up. They also need to fix their running game and shit like that. And they also need to get better on defense in terms of talent. They have one of the best linebackers in the league, Wilson Sharp. I won't deny him that. But after that, all they got really is their fellow linebacker, Thomas Redenour, whatever it's pronounced, and their rookie strong safety, Max Johnson, who was a second-round pick and all, but other than that, they really got no one. Thankfully for them, their offensive tackle, who was their first-round pick this year, Carlton Ocasio, had a pretty good season, so that could bring some stability to the offensive line, but of course, they gotta stop allowing so many sacks on their quarterback, too. But honestly, I really have no idea what's going to happen with Hawaii next year. Their offense is inconsistent and lopsided. Their defense is not really that good, even though they have talent. They're going to have a quarterback controversy next year, and I really don't know what's going to happen from it. Honestly, they could easily be still back in the cellar of the division, which they almost did this year. Then we get to the Los Angeles Angels, who were the division winner last year, remember. After a slow start, they went 12-6 and won the division, actually won a playoff game, and put up a big game against Omaha. Remember, they almost made it to the conference championship. They were really close. So, I thought they were going to struggle because they had a really tough schedule, and it looked like the team regressed a little bit, but I still thought they could be a really good threat in that division. They won their first game, but after that, they went on to lose 5 straight, and they really just could not recover at that point. They then went on to win 3 of their last 4, so they were 4-6, and like, maybe they can make a little bit of a comeback, but nope, they were not able to make that comeback, and they really had a disappointing year as they went 6-12. This team's main problem was really their offense. Last year was pretty solid. This year, nope, it was really bad. Their defense, although the stats don't look that good, that defense actually played a little bit better this year overall than last year. Although I don't have the stats off the top of my head. But that defense is not something to be underestimated. They played pretty damn good. One reason their offense struggled, of course, was their quarterback, Maurice Green, who had a really bad season. Of course, he was sacked to oblivion, 67 sacks. Even his backup, Justin Rowland, who filled in for injuries, he had a really good season. Although he only completed not even half his passes, he threw 11 touchdowns and just one pick. He was pretty damn good to the point where he actually could be the possible starter in 2018, and Maurice Green could possibly lose to. That is going to be a interesting sight to see. And another really big problem for Los Angeles was their stud MVP like running back John Fox had a major regression this year, missing 4 games to injury and only put up 1,200 yards when last year he almost put up 2,000 yards. That was a really disappointing season. He needs to get back into his former self. As the team still don't really have a tight end, but they still have their 2 stud wide receivers, William Stewart and Leo Dennis. But man, just like just like Hawaii, I really don't know what to say about them. this was a really disappointing season. I don't think there's really much I could think they could do to fix and get right back into playoff shape next year other than get better at running the ball and hope their quarterback doesn't get injured and play good, whoever it is playing next year. And that's all I got really to say. Who knows what will happen with Los Angeles next year. Then the disappointment continues as we get to the next team, the Phoenix Storm. And wow, what a disappointing season it was. Of course, remember last year they went 12-6. They started off 12-4, but then lost their final 2 games, which was really sad because they lost an opportunity to get maybe first round bye, let alone win the division. So they had to be on the road, where they lost to Los Angeles. And I thought maybe, other than a struggle, I still thought they could maybe challenge Los Angeles for that division title this year. And at first, everything looked like it was going right for Phoenix. They won their first 2 games, but then they lost 2 games. But then they won 3 games off their, 2 games off their bye. So here they were, 4-2, still in a really bad division, but they were leading it, or at least really, right there in terms of leading it. So it looked like they could still maybe win the division, but then they went on to lose 6 straight games, and nothing, and I mean nothing, went right for them. Nothing. The team could not get anything going. They couldn't. Their offense was terrible. Their defense was really bad. They even lost to Boston of all teams and let them get one of their wins this year. That's how bad it was. So they were 4-8, and after Portland began to struggle, it looked like Oakland was going to once again run away with the division. But no. Then all of a sudden, Phoenix got hot. They won 5 in a row, including beating Oakland one time. And here they were 9-8. Oakland just lost earlier in the day. So it was set for them. If they beat Denver at home, they would still win the division and make the playoffs. But no, not only did they lose, they got destroyed by Denver, 33-10 at home, to finish 9-9 and missing the playoffs. What an epic debacle this was for Phoenix. And as you can see, stat-wise, like offensively, they still were pretty good. I mean, their scoring wasn't really good. Their passing offense was okay, like in the top half. But their their yards was good. Their run offense was near elite. It was right up there as one of the best rushing offense in the league. And their defense, they took a step back, especially their passing offense. Their run defense, though, was 5th in the league. They only allowed 73 yards a game. But, of course, I'm sure a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're in this National West, which was one of the worst divisions in terms of offenses, other than Phoenix, Portland by and large. So this team was all over the place for being a 9-9 team. And what could they do next year to get right back in the mix? Well, their defense got to get better, of course, and they got to get a little bit more consistent when it comes to their offense. But I really don't know what to say about Phoenix, which has been largely the case for the entire National West right now. They have a big shoes to fill in 2018. Are they going to be back to what they once were and be a playoff threat in that division? Or are they going to begin falling off and being in the cellar of that division? Because right now it looks like Oakland is going to be the division leader for the next bunch of years possibly. And probably Portland might be their next best challenge, with Phoenix probably being right there with them. But are they going to be that competitor, or are they going to begin to fall off? I have no idea. And honestly, the way it's looking right now, it's looking downhill for Phoenix, and it's not a good sign for them, especially after such a terrible season, after they blew a big opportunity to still make the playoffs. And speaking of Oakland, that's our final team, as they are the division winner this time around. Last year, they went from worst and first. They were 5-13 last year. Nothing was going right for them offensively, although they still had a pretty good defense. So in the offseason, they made a huge splash where they actually traded 3 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a third-round pick to the San Francisco Union to get their backup quarterback, Ruben Williams, who played really well in his few games as his starter. And they thought maybe we could finally be a contender in the playoffs. Well, in his first season starter, Ruben Williams was not good. He wasn't like bust or anything, but he wasn't really that good either. and he honestly is not playing to the value that they traded for. They traded a farm to get him. But in the end, after starting off 0-2, they still made the playoffs. And they led the division by and large the entire season. Even when they struggled near the end of the season, they avoided the Los Angeles and Honolulu fell off. Portland made the rise but failed. Phoenix made their giant comeback and almost won the division, and they would have if they beat Denver. So Oakland faced a lot of adversity, but this time around, a winning season and a playoffs appearance, along with winning the National West. They then played Jacksonville in the wild card round, who was the reverse of them, a terrible defense but a really strong offense. And even though Ruben Williams did not play in that game, they still won the defensive struggle, only to lose next week to the soon-to-be champion Manhattan Greens in a defensive struggle as their offense just could not get anything going. Now, as you see, offensively, they were really bad. Even with Ruben Williams, this offense was still pretty bad. And in some ways, I think they actually might have gotten a little bit worse. Defensively, however, they got much better. Although their run defense, though, is pretty bad, 29th in the league. That's pretty bad considering the fact that they got to go up against teams, two teams in particular, that have really good running games, and you don't want to do good, allow them to get that many yards when you're this pretty bad offense yourself. Honestly, for 2018 and beyond, it's all going to be on Ruben Williams, their new quarterback. They did not have their first round pick, their second round pick, and their third round pick in the 2017 draft. They're not going to have their first or second round pick in 2018. He's got to get more talent around, but more importantly, he has to play better in 2018, or this is going to be viewed as one of the worst trades in the league, even if they made the playoffs all these years. They have to get better offensively, or they're going to have no shot at making it to PFA Bowl 3 or any PFA Bowl game anytime soon. Now, of course, thankfully for them, the division completely fell off underneath them, and they went from worst to first this year. Although they might have some competition to deal with in the upcoming year, I think they're going to lead the division probably for a while. But of course, if there's a squander, is Ruben Williams going to get better so they can actually compete for the big dogs in the division, or are they just going to be one of the worst teams in the playoffs that just got in by a bad division? Maybe they'll win a playoff game, but other than that, they're irrelevant. That's what we're going to have to see. It was a mixed season overall for Oakland. Yeah, they made the playoffs, but I'm sure they feel like they could do a lot more if Ruben Williams could just play better and that offense played better. So he has to play good in year 2, or he's going to start looking like a bust. And Oakland will be like, why did we make all these trades when we probably could have used those picks to maybe get a quarterback or some better offensive talent? We could have probably played better overall. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, as that was the last video covering the National Conference. As the second half of my recap series will now talk about the Century Conference, starting off with the Century East, which consists of Pittsburgh Blitz, Baltimore Charm, Cincinnati Colts, Buffalo Sabres, and the Columbus Barons. See you guys soon, as all that's left to update is Columbus, so this video actually might be very soon, like within the next day or so be looking out for that.